Greetings, students, knights, and staff of the Jedi Praxeum. We're on to our third soliloquy, seated discussive meditation experience. Tonight I want to talk about tradition. The Jedi, as a whole, have very few traditions. Our biggest tradition is our acknowledgement of the Force in some form or fashion. Some of us acknowledge it far greater than others. Some of us take it as a psychological construct. Some of us take it as a amplifying thought. Some think that we do not give it enough anonymity, and some people think we give it too much. But we all, to some extent, understand that it's there, just not always what it is. Another tradition we have is the attachment to the Jedi Code. And as we discussed Sunday, even that's not the most stable tradition. It is the single oldest piece of information we have along this path. It's the action code. There is no emotion, there is peace. It was created in 1978, shortly after the release of the entire concept of the Jedi. This code was founded. And we've had it since then, and we still use it. So that is probably our second greatest tradition. But what do we have beyond that? We have the traditions that we are individually made up of, from our upbringing, from our cultural heritage, from the way we are schooled, and from the way we learned life, because you don't usually learn a lot of life in school. It's not meant to do that for some reason. I have my traditions that exist outside of just the Jedi traditions that everyone has. But they are traditions that have built themselves into me and into my path. And so I'm going to give some of those traditions as examples, and then we're going to get into why. One of them I'm currently wearing. This is a gi that I have had since I was 15 years old. The pants have long since deteriorated and torn open from way too many quick, low stances. They have very good design for that, but eventually they will tear. And mine did. The elastic shot out in them too, so. But not just this gi, but what it represents. This gi represents a lifetime of dedication and sweat and focus and effort and energy. And it is as much part of my path as anything else. The Jedi path, the Jedi way, it is built upon this. I have heard on more than one occasion, and I do pretty much agree with this, that the Jedi way is as much a martial art as any other art. It just doesn't have a combat system attached to it. And now when that is stated, it's using the concept of a martial way, a life path that doesn't just teach you how to beat on folks. It teaches you how to interact, how to live, how to defend yourself without any kind of physical action. It teaches spiritual refinement and mental sharpening exercises and ways to strengthen the vitality of the body. Much like the breathwork exercises that I've been developing for this course, that I hope everyone is using and enjoying. If there are any problems, please feel free to address them to me directly or in the meditation room, either one. But this is one of the largest traditions that I have. And it is very much, to me, that the Jedi way is a martial way. I just happen to fill in the technical aspect of that. So the better way to say this would be a warrior's way. And this goes into something we're going to get into this weekend about the idea of the warrior. And I'll reiterate this Sunday, but separating the concepts of a warrior, a fighter, and a soldier are in no way meant to belittle anyone that have ever taken combat sports from the perspective of the fighter, from anyone who's ever been an active member of the military, for the soldier. Neither of these are meant to denigrate what you have done. And your successes, your survival, and your efforts have been noted and appreciated. So please, if you're watching this now and you see this Sunday, please do not take any offense to the use of these words, either now or then. But the soldier, the fighter, and the warrior are different beings. The soldier is characterized by taking orders. Doesn't make them weak, it doesn't make them indecisive, it makes them part of a structure. Like the samurai had their retainers. The Chinese royal guards had their just foot soldiers. They had just gate guards. They weren't the high-end royal guards that actually got to stand next to the emperor or anything. That was a different level of training, development, and time on post. Much like military rank. Your rank decides what it is you can do, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do. And so that's the concept of the soldier. Soldiers are not lesser. They are fantastically skilled and amazingly needed. The fighter, especially in something like a combat sport, is someone that craves violent interaction. They don't seek violence for the negative, aggressive, nasty concept of violence. They look at violence, in this case, as the ultimate test of their sporting ability, of their ability to do harm, good, technique. It really depends upon which combat sport we're discussing. If we're talking about the combat sport of judo, it is very much a technical thing. If we are talking about MMA, it is both technical and very brutal. If you're talking about, and this is stretching it a little bit, but if you're talking about those new Russian slap competitions where you have those mountainous people just knocking people's heads around, that's a combat sport. And it makes them a mean fighter because they've got a really nasty right palm to the head, I guess. But a warrior is one that may have at one point taken orders from another person, but their choices are purely their own. Their causes are purely their own. And while at some point they may still enjoy, or may have at one point thoroughly enjoyed, the sporting aspect of combat, they are not eager to jump into serious violent confrontation. They're more restrained and a little more reserved in their expression of their physicality. A warrior is one that lives not in his mind and not in his body, but he lives in his soul, his spirit, his existence. And every action that he takes, he weighs against the worth of his soul. And so a warrior will often pick up warrior traditions. They will pick up traditions that foster the ability to handle things physically, mentally, and spiritually at the same time. my tradition for that is the martial training. And there are several others within the community that are like that. They're not as openly discussive about it as I am, because I don't know, I like reminding of the origins of the path. And the path did come from a very martial origin. It was built out of the samurai and the Shaolin and Taoism. You mix those three up and you give them glowing laser swords. You have the original idea of a Jedi. Pre-Episode 1, where they became space monks, where they were questing knights. That's where this path started. And that's part of this path that we all need to remember. The quest, the knight, the willingness to stand up and rebel against evil. Warrior stuff, you know? Those are the traits of warriors. The warriors aren't violent people. They're not necessarily not violent people. They are willing to be violent. But they're not violent out of reflex. They're not violent out of love for it. They're prepared to be violent if they need to be. This is why I find that the martial aspect of all of the path is A, the most neglected, and B, the most needed. As I've been teaching, not just the Praxeum, I've been teaching for a very long time. I've been teaching since about 1999 to 2000. So 20 plus years. I have noticed that those, and this isn't a selling point, I will get to the point of this. I have noticed that those who take up martial practice of their own have an easier time fully assimilating and integrating the path than those who don't. That's not to say that those who don't never fully assimilate and integrate the path. They just don't do it as quickly, don't do it as easily, and don't do it as thoroughly. Historically, there's no one prime example for or against this statement. This is just a generalization from 20 years of looking at it. So yes, I push it. I push it almost to the point of pushing people into it. I explain why I push it. I explain why I find benefit in it. And I think it's because the way that the martial training molds you, good, true martial training, not just fighter training, not just playing around with sticks, not just spinning batons. I'm talking training in things that generate in you this gut-churning realization at one point that this can do some serious damage. And then realizing that as you have gotten to a point where you can do serious damage, you no longer have any drive to. It's like when I was discussing the concepts of yin and yang and how both sides grow together. As your violence grows, your peace grows, to maintain balance. And I think that the way that is integrated through physical action, repetitive, machine-like repetitive action, it allows you to enter into a more contemplative and flowing meditative state pretty regularly. It also helps to cycle the energy in the body to become more vital, more invigorated. It's nothing better than after a good, hard training session, that whole standing there just panting and sweating, and you go outside and it's cold, and you're watching the steam come out of your clothes, seeing the steam come off of your head and the reflection of your car window and stuff in front of you. That was me for the last few days, because it was well below freezing. There's no greater feeling. That's a force-charged, euphoric moment. but it's a tradition for me. And recently I have been very much highly vocal about the connection between the two. And there's rumblings in the community about it, not necessarily about me, but just about the martial and physical and all this other stuff going on. There's rumbles in the background about setting expectations or requirements or whatever, not trying to be exclusive or inclusive, and none of what I am doing is addressing that or is intended to stifle that. My statement is my statement as to why I find benefit in it and why I encourage it. I don't require it. If I required it, there'd be nobody in this room that wasn't already doing it. And there'd be a lot of upset people in this room. I do encourage it. I encourage it for the health benefits. I encourage it for the fact that there are people that think they can't because of physical limitations that they've gotten used to. And yes, again, as I say with all the breathwork techniques, you know you better than I know you. But I know me, and I know that if I did not push myself every day, I would allow my flat feet hurt all the time to keep me from training. I would allow the fact that I've had sciatic nerve tingles in my right leg since October. It's February. I would allow those tingles to go, I really shouldn't train because I might mess something up. And every time I train, it feels way better. Way better. Because it allows blood to flow and allows pressure to come off this nerve. Just got to figure out how to do that for a week or two to make the thing stop hurting completely, but that will come in time. I know me, I would find excuses. And I'm not one that typically finds excuses. And that's why I push. That's why I've made this my tradition. My tradition is to push harder and harder. And so yes, I encourage it in other people. I encourage those that have the limitations that they have, that have gotten to where they can kind of function within their limitations. I encourage them to push beyond them. Like pushing into a stretch so that you stretch just a little bit more, and it helps to actually stretch tendons and ligaments as well as the muscles for overall more flexibility and better health. So I encourage people to push their boundaries. Again, you know you way better than I know you. I just know that I get so comfortable with me that I'll find reasons to not. I'm not saying that anybody does. That is why I encourage, but I don't require, I don't harp on, I don't jump on people's heads if they tell me no. I'll ask, have you ever thought of this? Well, no, I don't think I can. Why not? Oh, I have this problem with my back. But you can stand and work? Yeah, but it hurts. Okay. Have you thought about trying this? This is well known for increasing vitality and flexibility and helping with back pain. Typically it's a Qigong or a Tai Chi Chuan or maybe even some yogic practice. And on the rare occasions that people actually pay attention to what I'm saying, most of the time they'll come back and go, it may not really be helping my back all that much, but it helps my legs and my feet so much more. I think it actually might help my back later. Or even the complete statement of, man, that's awesome. My back has not felt this good in years. My apprentice Andre, I spent several years encouraging him to join a dojo, and he finally did. And I am ecstatically proud of him. He is doing so fantastic. And he told me the last couple of months, he was like, dude, my knees don't even hurt anymore. And he's in great physical shape. He has been as long as I've known him. But it's not just an overall physical condition so much as the type of condition that he was in. He wasn't used to doing deep horse stances. He wasn't used to doing long stances or shifting from one to the next. And so his knees had lost their pliability in the tendons. And so when he would use them, his knees would hurt because he'd be pulling on super tight tendons. This is the same one that used to be a physical trainer at one of the French Riviera spas when they used to exist here. And he's a fantastic trainer. He's really good in the gym. He knows how to cut, and he knows how to build, and he knows everything that there really is to know about making the human physique look and feel better. Except how to make his knees not hurt. In that instance. Now he knows. Now he knows why. So it's more information. It's awesome. It's fantastic. So his knees feel better because he started training in Kempo Karate. It's not always necessarily about getting combat experience. It's really not. The typical argument is that most people will never face violent confrontation in their life that they would need advanced training for. By and large, they're right. Some of us do. Some of us come from backgrounds and areas that are not very safe. Some of us have jobs that are not very safe. Some of us have found themselves in jobs where we put ourselves in harm's way. And through that, we as those individuals need some advanced training, some advanced knowledge, more than likely. But not everybody will. Very few will. But the benefits are far more than just knowing how to throw a punch or throw a block. But I digress. This is one of my traditions. It is my biggest tradition, and it is integral in my time and development on the path. Going back to the beginning of this, the Jedi don't really have a lot of traditions. Other than, well, trying to decide what our traditions are. But we haven't been around long enough to really devise those. I saw an advertisement on Facebook for a little bitty Buddhist mobile altar setup thing. I had a little Buddha palm incense holder and a little Buddha and a mala and some incense and a candle and everything you needed to have a good little mobile Buddhist altar. And I looked and I went, we only have one symbol that we could use that way, but we really can't. Not if we're going to be taken seriously. Not anytime soon. And so we don't have any availability for symbols like that. We don't have any availabilities for totems like that. When I say totems, I don't mean it in the high ritual sense. I just mean little small representations, like a little Buddha. The options we have are weapons that don't really exist, which we all know I'm not a fan of. Or, as I have said very jokingly in my previous class, praying to the Golden Grogu. Or worshiping the Muppet. Those are things we can't do. We'll never, A, be taken seriously as a spiritual or religious movement. B, we will never get past the stigma of just being crazy role players. And C, once we actually start using those visuals, those very trademark visuals, we will get cease and desist orders, very likely sued. So that will be the by and large end of the online community. So we can't do those. Cannot do those. Because we don't have traditions of our own, though. Those are about the only option, so we just don't get to do it yet. But what traditions do you have? Now we're going to get into the point of this. I'm sorry I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but I do that sometimes. What are your traditions? What parts of your past have played into your path now? Along this path, what have you picked up? What have you gone? That fits me very, very well on my path. So I'm going to do that every day. For some people, it's prayer beads. I have 2 or 3 different sets and I use them different ways. They're very meditative. They're very good at that. But not everybody does that either. And I will discuss one of the more recent developmental sets of prayer beads that I made, not this coming week, but the week after. Because this week is the warrior, and the next week will be the mystic. And when we get into the mystic, I will start discussing more along the lines of personal mystical practice. So we're gonna go with that. What personal things have you made traditions in your path? What have you thought about adopting? What have you adopted and maybe let go of? So everybody go ahead, take the time, think about this. I don't need an answer for this right away. I need it by Sunday. That's all. I do need an answer for this though. So if you don't put a homework post on it, expect to answer it at the beginning of class, because I'm going to ask. And if you're watching this and aren't going to be able to be in class, you know how to share it, man. Either do it on a homework or send it to me directly, whatever. The purpose of this isn't a pass or fail on some graded assignment. But there is a way to fail this course, and it's failing yourself. I'm offering tools that have helped me along my life on this path to help other people on theirs. It's another one of my traditions. So everybody think hard. What traditions do you have on your path? Have you picked up any? Have you picked up a lot? Have you picked up some and set some down and swapped them out? Do you pick a new tradition every year? Have you followed a tradition for several years and then recently changed? Going back to the Force and our very traditional sense of the phrase, may the Force be with you. I don't use that anymore. I haven't in a long time. For several years in the early 20 teens, I would say for the Force. And now it's Force, guide, and protect you. But they are still traditions. It is still a traditional Force-centered blessing of a form as a parting word. And with that, Force, guide, and protect you all.